dear ones, to this next video where I want to be sharing a bit more about the Vast Heart meditation practice that I've issued as a summertime challenge to deepen your practice. But before I get started, let's just take this moment to truly land here together and give our full attention to our inner life. So the easiest way is just to bring your awareness to the fact of the breath and to receive each inhale as a welcome. Welcome just to be here where you are. Welcome to this moment. Welcome to all parts of yourself. And consider each exhale as a natural melting, a natural letting go. It can be effortless and natural. Just feeling patterns of tension in the body beginning to melt. Just recognizing that the following of thoughts can melt. Even your concepts about what you are, what the world is, what you think you have to do, or become, or get over. Right now, all that can melt. And just feeling yourself naturally drawn in. Just like iron is drawn naturally by a magnet underneath. Just feel yourself being drawn into the core of your being and letting yourself just be. Feel the breath focusing into the heart space now. And just feel as if your heart, not just your physical heart, but the very core of you, where your body, your personal sense of self, and your transcendent beingness intersects. And you'll notice that in the depth of your heart, there is naturally love. There is naturally remembrance of your inherent value, of the inherent value of everyone. And there's a kindliness and a natural joy that is your heart. So just feel as if your heart is the focus of the breath rising and falling. And that together, as we listen and spend some time together, that depth of your heart that is both yours and not yours, that is love itself, can open up and allow more space for the qualities of your deepest nature to become more available in your life in ways that are beneficent and helpful for the whole. So last month I did something I haven't done before, which is to really offer a challenge to my community to bring more focus and more concentration to one of the particular practices that are part of the curriculum of the Way of Grace, And that is a meditation practice that I call the vast heart. Part of why I offered that challenge is that, as Hafiz says so beautifully, the mind, the ego mind, is ever a tourist, wanting to touch and buy new things and then toss them into an already full closet. And often that we can, without even realize it, behave like spiritual tourists, just taking a little of this, a little of that, but not really staying or persisting with one practice and letting it really open up and take us somewhere that is really what is possible only if we will actually do something that is quite countercultural these days, which is to slow a practice down and to persevere with it in a sustained way. So I was inviting you to actually buy a mala. If you haven't already bought one, I really encourage this because I've been hearing so many wonderful reports from many people who are pretty experienced meditators over the years. And they have been sharing how returning to working with a mala really brings a lot more focus and concentration and helps you to stay honest rather than just, do it for a few minutes, but then sort of move on to something else. And so, if what you really want is to let your practice deepen, then what's needed is, more focus, more commitment, more one-pointed concentration with that practice. And I'm giving you this vast heart practice, and it's mainly because I feel that our world really could do with a lot more heart at this point, and that more of us dissolving the sense of separation and really starting to feel the truth of our one human family is a very, very important thing in terms of helping us to act differently and live more compassionately and be more graceful human beings in and amidst what is often some pretty stressful and challenging situations that we find ourselves in. I'm very aware of my London and UK based students feeling very anxious about the Brexit and what that will mean. Certainly here in America where I live, many people are feeling a lot of different feelings about the the collective state of things, and certainly wherever you live, the the difficult truths of climate change and the fact that we need to evolve and learn to harmonize and be deeper, more mature human beings in and amidst what are collective challenges that might not be so easy to turn around is extremely important right now. So that's part of why I'm giving you, my community, this challenge, this invitation. So in the broadcast today, I want to speak a little bit about some of the challenges that you might be experiencing and that some of you have been writing in and sharing you're having, and how you can navigate through those issues gracefully and wisely so that you're not held back by them. And I also want to give the next level of the practice, which is the vertical breath. So before we move on to the vertical breath, let's not be spiritual tourists. I want to say a bit more about the horizontal breath, which those of you who've been doing this have been working with for the last month. And if you've fallen off the wagon, dear ones, don't berate yourself. Don't make it mean you're a spiritual success or failure. Simply just return to the practice. And maybe before going on to the vertical breath, you could spend a week or maybe 10 days just focusing on the horizontal breath still, just so that you don't drop the ball with that. You work with it. So the horizontal breath is important because it starts by helping us to recognize something that is really important for personal and collective awakening. And that is the fact that we don't exist as separate entities at all, even though we think we do. And that's often our ordinary perception of daily life. When you really reflect a bit more deeply, we are all breathing the same air, are we not? Every being, whether you share the same views on life, political affiliation, whether the color of their skin, their life experience, their perspective in life is completely different to yours, you are breathing the same breath, right? We are all breathing the same air. Furthermore, we are all being breathed by the same mystery, which is quite extraordinary when you really think about it. We didn't birth ourselves. Breath is an involuntary mechanism, although we can bring our awareness to it and expand it or deepen it. But nevertheless, it will go on automatically, and it does when we're sleeping. And there is some grace, some mystery that causes that to happen. Well, it's the same mystery that causes me to breathe as causes you to breathe. So when you just bring your awareness to, okay, we're all breathing the same air and we're all being breathed by the same mystery. We're all graciously hosted by the same Mother Earth. This helps immensely to dissolve the false idea that we are truly separate just because our bodies seem to be separate. But when you really go deeper into that, you see that your body is an embodiment, a manifestation of the same unified fabric of being. And so working with the horizontal breath helps to dissolve the false sense of body identification, taking the borders of our physical body to be where we end, and helps us to move beyond the inherent materialism of such a view that is what breeds so much unnecessary fear and egocentric behavior in our daily lives and in the world. And so, what happens that's really beautiful is that the more you feel as if your breath could expand horizontally, that I like to feel it and see it as if my heart is becoming as wide as the endless sea and sky, the endless horizon. And that as I'm feeling that, I'm putting my focus of attention on that horizontal breath, I can feel the fact that the natural attitude that I have for every other life form, be it human beings, dogs, cats, creatures, lizards, horses, birds, every other being that shares the same space and breath and planet as we do, the natural relationship that we have is one of love. When our heart opens horizontally, we start to feel our unity with everyone else, our interconnectedness, and most importantly, we feel our goodwill towards them. We feel the truth that it is their basic human right to be loved, to be treated respectfully, to have every opportunity in life, and that's just what's true. Our heart feels that, that's natural. And so if you're struggling to feel that, you might ask yourself conversely, like, does it feel natural to hate? Does it feel natural to you to see that some people should be denied goodness, some people should be denied love? I'm sure if you asked yourself those kinds of questions, you would say, absolutely not. That's just not a truth. Your heart knows it. And so the point of the horizontal breath is to really awaken what's actually natural, what is primordial to your heart, which is love, compassion, empathy, fellowship with all beings. And this is beautiful as a development because it makes us more beautiful human beings, better human beings, the kind of human beings our world needs a lot more of. So, one of the things that this is likely to challenge is, I said it before, your identification with your body and the borders of your body being as where you begin and end. It'll challenge your concepts of being a separate somebody, which is a good thing. It will also challenge your sense of, what's possible for you. It'll challenge your relationships, and it will likely bring up fears or concerns about being that open, that vulnerable. Now, these fears and concerns usually have some bearing on, how you felt as a child, how safe you felt with other people, whether it seemed like others, were trustworthy or decent or kind. And so, if this horizontal part of the meditation is pushing up those kinds of concerns for you, know that that's a good thing. You want to let it push on those concerns, but you also want to get more curious about the part of you who is concerned, right? So, for example, you'll likely see that part of you is a person of history, is a young self that feels free, who maybe had a scary time with mother, or who experienced men as being a little threatening or difficult or overbearing, absent, or who had a bad time in the classroom or was bullied by other children, and so started developing beliefs that we have to guard our heart. All these kinds of things are normal. If they're coming up for you, know that it's a good thing that they're coming up. They're coming up to be seen and understood and contacted. And remember that when we understand more about what a meditation practice might be pushing on, all we have to do is to stay with the practice, but not when we're meditating, but to actually perhaps get curious about the issues that it's flushing up. And to remember the principle of ego relaxation with whatever comes up, which is stay present, feel everything, do nothing to change, fix, or rearrange your experience. That is what always is going to allow a grace deeper than your mind to loosen, dissolve, melt, and transform obscurations, whether they are of a psychological nature, an energetic nature, or a spiritual nature. Likely they'll be all three. So another thing that I think it was Vanessa who wrote in saying that she was experiencing kind of involuntary physical movements. This is actually quite common, and it's a sign that your subtle body is actually starting to open up, and that it's sort of hitting on some habits of closure, some patterns of tension, some cobwebs, if you like, for want of a better term. So again, the thing to do is persist with the practice gently, and when you can start to feel those involuntary sort of jerky movements start to appear, the more you can relax and just let it happen, the better. Don't be concerned about it. This is a very common thing. It happens to most people as their meditation practice deepens and their subtle body starts to open up. So it's really a good sign. You just want to be gentle with yourself. There was a time when my practice was really opening substantially, and those kinds of, I called them the Shakti shakes. They would seem to sort of begin really deep down in the belly, and it's like a Kundalini opening. It was moving up through my central channel. It was so strong. It was like concerned I was going to get whiplash or something. So I found just paying attention to my posture and that I was supported by cushions and chair, so that I was really supporting my body to relax as much as possible, was very helpful. It will subside in time, and the more you also get curious about what it might be hitting on, that will likely help it to smooth out as well. So go gentle and continue with the practice, I would say to Vanessa. So Brian asked about help for visualizing the various breaths, and I think I've already given quite a lot of visual images, but what I was saying earlier, Brian, about recognizing that you're being breathed by the same presence, the same mystery that all other beings are being breathed by, that your heart could be breathed open like it is the horizon of sea and sky. Or if you're having trouble, and Cynthia was asking, she was having a hard time actually feeling the interconnectedness with all beings. Well, what might help is just to start by feeling the actual people in your life that you feel connected to and that you love and you know that there's a goodness with. So it might help you to feel, oh, you're being breathed by the same presence that is breathing them. there's a natural love that is there naturally between you. You feel that connection with them. And then just let it expand out further so it goes beyond just the people that you know and you have a personal connection with. Really, the point of the horizontal breath is to really expand the depth of your heart to be, that boundless, to really go beyond just your personal sense of self and your personal sense of connection with individuals, and to really start to feel your relatedness with all beings and things, even though there might not be an ordinary interpersonal relationship with them. What you'll find is that, ironically, this practice will deepen your your connection with the people who are in your lives, your husband, your wife, your children, your colleagues, your friends, your neighbors. But it will also remind you that you really are part of one human family and that we all matter deeply. So, I also want to just say that, the important thing with whatever you find is just to remember the quality that I wrote about in my book, The Way of Grace: patience. Our ego is often like a child and wanting quick results, and we live in a time where we're all used to going online to Amazon and putting things in our cart and having them magically appear at our door the next couple of days. But, real spiritual practice takes time. And so you need to really work with that virtue of patience, which means just showing up for the practice and doing your best, not pushing, but persevering. This is really important because it is this dance, spiritual awakening is this mysterious dance between your rightful effort, the sincerity that you put in, the continuing to show up for your practice like you said you were going to, that reaching out for support and giving support for others in your community to help you stay with it, to not just give up, but also to remember that you're not in charge, that it's really grace itself, the divine mystery, that is in charge of what happens and when it happens. But it needs you to show up for the practice. So, as I said before, if you've fallen off the wagon a little bit, you started off with good intention and excitement. Yes, I'm going to do this. And then you lasted a week or maybe two, and then you dropped off. Don't make that mean anything. It doesn't mean anything about you, about your worth, about your goodness, about your sincerity. It just means, okay, you forgot, you got swept up with other things. Rumi said, "Come, come, whoever you are, even though you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Come, come again, come." So I'm echoing Rumi's words to you in relation to this practice, this challenge is just come back to it, return to it, pick up that mala again, and spend whatever time you feel you need to on the horizontal breath. And then let's shift to the vertical breath. Now, if you have been consistent with it, you can begin this right away. So I want to share a bit about how the vertical breath works, what it addresses, and how you can really let it deepen you in your practice. So not only are we being breathed horizontally, but our heart wants to expand vertically as well. So vertical expansion in the heart brings about more of a felt sense of there being infinite ground, infinite support for your heart, infinite support for your deepest intentions and prayers, as well as infinite blessings, infinite light, infinite spaciousness, no limits whatsoever. Receptivity to subtle dimensions of grace that we can talk about, but we can't fully conceptualize because it's beyond that. So, for example, many of you might have already been working deeply with the Mountain of Presence meditation, which is a very powerful and important meditation practice and central. And so the vertical breath kind of touches upon what you might have encountered or experienced with the mountain of presence, which is really that when you recognize just the fact that right now, your body is in contact with the floor in some way, feet perhaps, or maybe you're sitting on the floor, and the ground beneath you is so much more than it seems. That below your heart, there is a whole ecosystem called the earth, a whole living, breathing being that gives us a home, supports us, nurtures us, provides us with shelter and beauty, food, support, doesn't have any judgment about us. And that underneath what we can see, underneath the crust of the earth, there are all these layers of minerals and raw elements and crystals and liquids. And at the very center of the earth, there's this sort of molten lava core. And that all this is hanging in infinite nothingness or space or void. And all of that is support. All of that is below your heart. Right? And so there's this immensity that is the ground of all being, the ground of grace, and it offers total support for your heart to open and deepen and expand. And simultaneously, above your head, you can sense and even see physical space, and you can sense perhaps light. If you're watching this and it's daytime, you're already in the light. Naturally, even if you're not aware of it, you're in the light that creates the day. But in Vedic understanding, there are 7 lokas or levels of light and space, and only 2 of them, 3 of them are things we can see. And so other lokas or levels of light pertain to angelic realms, bodhisattva realms, enlightened beings. When I was a young person on the path reading some Alice Bailey text, I was very struck by something I found where she was speaking about the physical sun being akin to all the enlightened beings meditating, all the radiance, all the blessings of all the enlightened beings. So when you bring your focus of attention, working with the Malvi, but you focus on the felt sense of your heart being breathed vertically, you're opening to all of that. You're opening to that infinite ground, infinite support for the heart, and infinite spaciousness, infinite blessings, infinite light. And you feel your vertical being, your vertical experience energetically come into alignment that is independent of any person or anything. This is really empowering when you work with it, especially if you've been going through a very difficult time, or there's been, challenges or heartbreak, or you're really feeling an extra need to find deeper ground independent of the challenges of life and the challenges of our world. This part of the practice can really help with that. And so all you do is you just keep your focus of the felt sense of the heart being breathed vertically, infinite ground, infinite space and light. And you just sense that experience, which means you feel it energetically, you see it if that's useful to you, and you just feel the effect of that sense of this enormous anchor that has no beginning, middle, or end, really, that's going right through you. That's epicenter is your heart. So your heart has infinite support, infinite light, infinite blessings. And that's just what you focus on in those 108 breaths. So we will get to the back and front part of the practice, and then all of it opening simultaneously, part of the practice. But I want to save that for the next month, because remember, we are deepening here by going slower and paying more attention. That's usually what's required to deepen any spiritual practice, is not rush to the next level of the practice, but be consistent and take our time and really tease out the nuances and work with the things that comes up for us in a way that actually deepens us, that gives us more insight and understanding. So a couple of other things I want to mention is just to stay with it and to reach out to one another. I've been really touched to hear that some of you have been texting one another on a daily basis or WhatsApping one another saying, I've done my vast heart practice for the day, and encouraging one another. And that's a really beautiful and important thing to do and helps us all. We need the support of friends of like mind, mighty companions who are dedicated to what we're dedicated with and can help one another when challenges arise and help one another stay with it. So I really encourage that. And if you don't have that, then get on the Facebook page and ask who would like to be my buddy for this, my meditation buddy for the Vast Heart Challenge. So there's plenty of support for us all. Secondly, I also want to remind you that there are a couple of things coming up soon that you might enjoy, and one of them happens this Sunday. Some of you may know about the organization SAND, which stands for Science and Non-Duality. It's a big international community. And this will be the first time that I'm doing a free broadcast with them. It's actually going to be an interview with Vera, and we'll be talking about the way of grace, and in particular, what that really means in terms of walking a non-dual path, what's different about it, what's the same about it, and how this really invites us to allow a deeper humanity and a deeper transformation in the midst being and living here in this world. But living here in this world from a consciousness that isn't caught up or bound by it. So that will be free, and it's happening this Sunday. So you can either have a look on the Facebook page or on the event section of my website to find out details and get the links. It's free, but you do have to register. And if you feel so inclined, I would really be grateful if you feel like you'd like to forward that along to friends or people you know, or help me spread the word. There are so many people who I know could benefit from these teachings, and that takes a village. So the other thing I want to mention is that I will be teaching a retreat at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, upstate New York, in August 11th through 16th. And if you have ever done a 5-day retreat with me, then you know that what can happen in those 5 days is very life-changing and unlike anything else. So this is often what I look forward to the most, is having 5 concentrated days where people are really putting other things aside and we can really journey. So I'm going to be teaching a 5-day retreat on the way of grace, which means I'm going to be taking you through some of the most important transformative parts of the book that really do require more experiential navigation. And what I look forward to most often is the satsang in the evening, where I get to work with your questions and your grapplings in the chair and really help you to go where your heart wants to go, which is so much further than just a little peace and happiness on the side, let me tell you. So if you can come, please check it out. Please come. I'd so love to meet you. And more than anything, just enjoy this practice. It's such a beautiful practice. It brings forth the qualities of our deepest heart. And let me remind you again that those qualities are joy, love, compassion, empathy, courage, strength, and so much more. All of this is your birthright, and I want you to know yourself this deeply and to live from this depth of heart in our world, and to help one another as a community to bring this depth of heart deeper into our world. So I love you, I thank you, and I look forward to hearing how you get on with this. Please write in and I will respond to you, and we'll help one another. So have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you.